You already figure that you know what this is. Went ahead and bolted this bad boy up just to get a fit test and see how it looks. I went ahead and changed out that T fitting to a swivel AN fitting. And like I said, my temp sensor for this Holley sniper will also be split to feed my gauges. Went ahead and ordered this little knurled aluminum nut. Cut my stud down to fit this, so that's the right setup. Started running my fuel line. I just put the fitting on here to kind of mock up and get an idea for how it's going to be feeding. I started it down here. I just fed it through the, it's got a rubber grommet. It's feeding through this transmission cross member. And once it's installed, you'll have to disassemble this side's fitting to pull it out. But that'll be a straight fitting, and it'll join onto, I don't know if I can angle the camera, but there's a straight, there it is. There's a straight stainless steel tubing with an AN nut on there. And it'll be a union in between the two nuts. That'll come up. More than likely, it'll feed up this frame rail here. I haven't decided how I'm gonna keep it away from the exhaust. I don't know if I'm just gonna wrap it and leave it run this frame rail path and run it close to this edge here, or if I want to cross it over towards the transmission. Sorry for the shitty camera work. Cross it over towards the transmission, over towards the middle of the car, and then run it up and just have it come up right here, and then, you know, right alongside the sniper and in. So I don't know for sure how that's going to be handled. I might end up just putting a 90 on this and kick it off this way and just have it come and then run this path here. Sorry, again with the camera. Right in front of this bulkhead for the brakes. I'll have it run down here, and I'll put a fuel line holder. Well, I got some more of those billet aluminum tubing holders, whatever, brackets, mounts, whatever you want to call them. Anyways, so I want to get at least the feed line set up and pressure tested. I don't know where I'm going to mount my regulator yet. It mounts on the return side. I've got it right here. And this fitting can swap to either side depending, and then the return's on the bottom. So return from the sniper comes into this and out the bottom to the tank. Just a fuel pressure gauge so I can set the regulator, and then it is boost referenced. Another thing that you might notice is this bonnet sits high. High as pretty sure that's not going to clear the hood. Not really that big of a problem, because I planned on changing the hood later anyways. But I was hoping to be able to run the stock hood until I could afford the carbon hood that I want. So if I get to the point of where I am flipping these around, these headers, and boosting it, which was the plan originally anyways, but it's since then changed to run it NA just to get it drivable for cruising coming up this year. If I decide to go turbo before I have the new hood, I'll probably have to cut a hole in that hood and mock up some kind of scoop or hump or whatever. Don't know how that'll work out yet. Who knows, I might order a fiberglass Eleanor hump just to get a feel for things and see how it looks. But I do have a filter on order. It actually was supposed to show by now, but FedEx hasn't delivered it. I guess with all this COVID stuff going on, deliveries are slow. I figured they would have updated it and said, you know, delayed till tomorrow, but I just got one of those little Spectre extra flows, 3-inch, the one that has the filter on top as well. For whatever reason, you can get the blue ones on eBay for like 50 bucks. And if you buy them anywhere else, they are like $120. I wanted the black one to match the rest of the car, but I'm not paying, you know, $50, $60, $70 extra for a color. You can buy the oil for like 15 bucks and just re-dye it. Another thing I ran into, this throttle rod. Give you an inline perspective. There's the rod, there's the linkage. The linkage in line is like. So, my two options. Take this fancy billet throttle rod and give you an idea. That's how far off it is. I can't kick it sideways because it hits on the secondary linkage. Can't run it from the inside because when you go wide open throttle, it hits the secondary linkage here. So, my options are as follows. One, swap this rod out for the shitty looking wire ones. Possibility. Two, bend this with my tubing bender, which is what's looking like the primary option, because I think all this is just aluminum threaded tubing. If I screw it up, I take it to my welder buddy, have him weld the offset for me with some other tubing. Problem solved. Cost me probably 20, 30 bucks for him to do it. Or two, I try to bend this heavy ass steel rod, which I'm not feeling that. I'd have to pull it off the car. I'd have to put it in the vise. I'd have to beat on it, hammer it. It's gonna chip the paint, I'm sure. I'd have to repowder it, repaint it, whatever. And that's also gonna make it lose height. When said and done, it'd probably be about right here. Don't know if that's a problem or not. But I don't want to get it closer to this, really. I like the distance I have here, so I'm probably going to leave this throttle rod alone. Probably going to modify this. I'll more than likely try to bend it tomorrow, see how it goes. I still have to go pick up my radiator and shroud and fans from my buddy doing work. So if I screw it up, I'll take measurements, I'll see how it needs to be adjusted, and I'll have him weld it for me real quick, because it shouldn't take long to fix that. Right now I just got a glove shoved in here to keep bugs out of it. The other thing I noticed, my fancy stainless studs that I had, they are like maxed out. I couldn't put the washer on. I didn't feel it was grabbing enough threads with the washer on. I'm using this little 1/4 inch spacer, and I have a gasket on top and bottom. I'm actually using an aftermarket gasket, and my old gasket, because the gasket came with the Holley, is actually fairly thick, and it had too much space to where it didn't want to even grab threads. So I will probably end up ordering a little bit longer carb studs, unless I just trust it there. I'd rather have a washer there so it doesn't eat into this, since that is aluminum. Still have to do my bulkhead for my heater lines. I did pressure test my heater after I got it wired up so I could open that servo. It holds pressure just fine. The next thing on the agenda is going to be wiring this, obviously, because I have all this harness stuff to wire up. And I need to order the firewall insulation. If anyone knows, and I'm talking about personal experience, that has used what they recommend, who makes the best or who sells the best firewall insulation. I've seen a bunch of different ones. I've seen a bunch of reviews, all different ways. I prefer something that fits, not necessarily stock, because it's a Dynacorn firewall. So keep that in mind, but I want something that fits well, insulates well, and I will have to modify it a good bit. Because one, I don't have this hole here anymore. So ideally one that has that solid piece would be great, but don't know if any of them have the solid piece that you would cut out or if they all come with a hole. So I'll have to fix that somehow. But then I'll have to make the holes for all of my aftermarket things. Like my pedal assembly over there, I have to cut around to make that fit. My bulkhead fittings for the Deutsch connectors, those. My AC is bolted up with these two bolts, so I have to poke a hole. That's not a big deal, easy peasy. I have these bulkheads down here for the power and ground. So I have those things to keep in mind, and I have to cut around, so ease of cutting would help, and obviously one whole fitment thing. If anyone knows of like just an aftermarket, kind of like Dynamat type insulation that you could use, I'd be open to using that. I would probably much rather make my own firewall insulation that I could stick on first. I really want something I could stick to the firewall. That'd be great. That way I could put it in place, come back and drill the holes where they need to be, or poke the holes where they need to be with it in place. And then the stuff that I bolt to the firewall will pinch it in place and hold it more firmly. Because the original firewall insulation's held with like these little clip pin plastic things, kind of like what you'll use for the slim mount electric fans when you're putting them through a radiator that doesn't have a shroud. They're just big washer with a little like zip tie type stud that feeds through, and it has a little clip lock nut. It's something similar to that they used. Or little lock pins like you see on modern day bumpers and trim pieces. Anyways, I'll wrap this up. That's all I really got done today. I did notch that out for the AC vent. Fits beautifully. I did test fit it. I also trimmed out the factory trim, because the original bezel that comes with these is just ABS plastic. So like this border trim is just black on all sides. So the top, bottom, sides here is black. And I thought it kind of looked shitty when put up against the rest of the deluxe trim, since it has this chromed trim, which may or may not end up leaving. I don't know how I would get rid of it other than like taping it off and painting it. Be a pain in the ass, but regardless, this is done. The only thing I don't like about it is these little vents mount with these little spring clips right here and here. Using the factory OEM trim piece, it's too thick to clip, so it does that. It does not lock in place. So I have to worry about it vibrating loose or the vent starting to push through the dash over time. You can see where it's got a little gap right there, see? So the ultimate fix, what I might end up doing later, is running some sealant caulk type poly, urethane, whatever, along this top here and the bottom here, just to kind of glue it in place. May do that later, who knows? I'll see how it works. If it doesn't want to push through the dash, if I want to start vibrating out, I'll leave it be. I have to order my coolant line. I don't know how much of it I need necessarily yet, so I'm holding off on ordering it until I get my radiator installed to the car so I can measure. Yeah, that's it for now, and hopefully next video I'll have this Holley wired up and this fuel line ran. Like I said, the return line, I still got to figure out where the hell I'm going to mount that regulator. I ordered a bracket that mounts to carburetor, but I don't think it'll work for this EF5 because it is quite wide, as you can see. Because it's wide on both sides. Because I'm pretty sure that this throttle linkage does not normally stick out that far from that rod. Pretty sure it is, this is normally about right here. You normally have fuel bowls in the front and back, whereas on these, the fuel is, well, on the sides. But yeah, that's it for now. I'll touch base whenever I got more done. Thanks, guys.